Hey everyone, welcome back to 2010's Top 10 channel. So if you guys have been watching my past couple of videos, you know I'm in the middle of doing a series on this channel counting down my favorite movie villains of each decade. And today's video is the conclusion to that series, counting down my top 10 movie villains of the 2010s. If you haven't yet, please go check out those other videos. I did my favorite movie villains from the 1980s, 90s, 2000s, and now we're going to be doing 2010s. And I have a little bit of help in this video with my dog Gizmo. So if you see me moving a lot or petting him, that's what I'm doing. And as always, I do have a few honorable mentions, starting with General Zod from Man of Steel. This is definitely a movie that has aged pretty well over time. When I first saw it, I liked it, but I didn't love it. I definitely like it a lot more. And General Zod is one of the reasons why I really think Michael Shannon is very good in this movie. I always love Michael Shannon. He always brings a lot of energy to movies. And he's pretty menacing in this movie. And I love the final battle between him and Superman. And I never really understood the hate of Superman snapping Zod's neck. Like, I thought it was earned in the movie. Then again, I'm not a huge Superman fan. So if you're a big Superman fan, maybe that pissed you off. But I think he's a great villain to start off with in the Man of Steel, and I kind of wish we got more of that character. My next honorable mention is going to be Pennywise the Clown from It and It Chapter 2. I definitely think he's scarier in the first one, though. Bill Skarsgård definitely had a uphill battle trying to take what Tim Curry did in the 1990 It miniseries and do something different, but also still be scary and still be the character of Pennywise. And I think he did enough different to stand out where they're both Pennywises, but they both have differences as well. Like Bill Skarsgård's Pennywise is a little more creepy. He's like a little more slimy, and I don't know, I definitely think he's a lot scarier than Tim Curry's. But there's some standout moments where you're just like, oh, this guy is fucking creepy. I just wish that It Chapter 2, there's definitely some creepy moments, like when he's under the bleachers with the little girl and then pretty much bites her face off. That was pretty scary in the movie theater. But at the end of number 2, when he turns into the big spider, kind of like all that scare factor kind of just goes away. You're like, oh, this is a big dumb CGI mess. So that's why he's an honorable mention. A lot of people might have him out in their top 10s, but not for me. One of the more underrated villains of the decade, I think, is Ultron from Avengers Age of Ultron. A lot of this has to do with James Spader's voice as the character. I love how intimidating his voice is. He sounds so menacing. I also think he's a pretty fun character. He's got some some funny jokes. But when he needs to be scary and intimidating, he can be. Kind of wish he was in a better movie. But for what it is, I thought he did really well as the villain. My next honorable mention is going to be Rose the Hat from Dr. Sleep. I had mild expectations for this movie because I love The Shining, but you hear that they're making pretty much a sequel to The Shining. Not only do that to satisfy fans of the movie, but also the book. And I thought this movie kicked a lot of ass. It was so much better than almost anyone thought it was going to be. And a big reason for that is the character of Rose the Hat, played by Rebecca Ferguson. She is incredible in this movie. She's very seductive. And she's got like this family of, you can call them vampires. They pretty much suck like the shine out of people. And so she's got this family, and she's very motherly to all of them. But when she needs to be scary as fuck, she can be. Like that scene where they all devour Jacob Tremblay. Like that scene is fucked up. And then at the end, I think she's got a really good battle against Danny. So it's a lot of fun. She's a total blast of a character. And my last honorable mention, I really wanted to get this guy in the top 10, but I just couldn't get there. And that's Black Phillip from The Witch. I fucking love the performance of Black Phillip in this movie. For anyone who doesn't know, Black Phillip is a goat. He's the goat in the movie. But he's a goat in the movie, but he's also the devil. And you don't find that out until the end of the movie when he starts talking. Thank God that's off screen. Like, you just hear his voice, and it's so creepy. The way he talks, like, what's thou like to live deliciously? Like, it's so creepy. It's really unsettling, but I love him he's pretty much just tearing this family apart from the inside. And it's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen The Witch, I love this movie. It's one of my favorite horror movies, probably ever. Robert Eggers is incredible. And Black Phillip, just what a great villain. Kicking off the list at number 10 is the villain that will lead you to Valhalla, and that is Immortan Joe from Mad Max Fury Road. Morton Joe is such a piece of shit in this movie. He is pretty much a tyrant who leads over this entire town um, of people, and he keeps like 5 or 6 wives, brides that he pretty much uses just to have children with. He disregards them other than to have children, and so the brides escape with Furiosa, and Morton Joe pretty much just revs up all the war boys and all the vehicles that they can get and just chase them down. And he is such a fun villain. I think the performance is excellent. Just the look of him. He kind of looks like fucked up Darth Vader in a way with his breathing apparatus. And he also has one of my favorite movie villain deaths. Coming in at number 9 is one of the most sympathetic movie villains of all time, and that is Killmonger from Black Panther. One of the MCU's best villains. For a while, the MCU had a very hard time getting villains right. They did excellently with their heroes, but they always had a villain problem. They all kind of generic. But Killmonger definitely stands out. First of all, you got Michael B. Jordan in the role, and he brings a lot to this character. First of all, he is jacked. Holy shit! You see him and you're like, T'Challa is going to have a hard time defeating this guy because Michael B. Jordan is yoked in this movie. He's got good reason to be mad. You know, his dad gets murdered, and he's pissed off at Wakanda for pretty much leaving him behind. And he kind of just wants his revenge and pretty much be able to help people around the world. But he's going about it in the wrong way. So as a villain, you can kind of see where he's coming from. But like I say, he's just going about it the wrong way. I'm excited for Black Panther 2. I doubt they're going to bring this character back because he does die at the end, but they could make up some excuse to bring him back. I like this character a lot, so it'd be really cool to see him come back, but I guess we'll find out in a couple weeks. But Killmonger, one of the best parts of Black Panther. Coming in at number 8 is a villain who was born in the darkness, and that is Bane from The Dark Knight Rises. Now, Tom Hardy and Christopher Nolan had the impossible job of finding a villain that was just as good as Heath Ledger's The Joker from The Dark Knight. And I think it was smart for them to go with Bane as the villain for the third movie because in the first movie you get Ra's al Ghul and Scarecrow, who are more methodical in their plan. They're not very physically fit. And then in the Dark Knight, you get the Joker, who just fucks with Batman in every way possible. But like once again, he's not a physical match for Batman. Like if they got into a fist fight, Batman would kick the shit out of him. So I think it was smart to get Bane, who is one of the biggest muscular Batman villains for the third movie. And Tom Hardy delivers as Bane. He is such a badass in this movie. First of all, he's just fucking jacked as shit. Holy crap. Like if you watched Warrior, the movie Warrior with Tom Hardy, and you saw him in that movie, and then The Dark Knight Rises comes out a year later, but you see him in Warrior, like that guy's going to fight Batman next year. Batman is fucked. And yeah, he definitely breaks a Batman's back. I love the fight scenes with him. I kind of wish he got a better end as a villain. He kind of goes out with a whimper, you know, just gets shot by the bat pod or whatever on by Catwoman. So I kind of wish he had a better death. But I think Tom Hardy does an excellent job with the performance. And like I said, I think Bane was the right villain to pick for this movie. Just a couple flaws, which if they weren't there, he'd probably be higher on the list. Coming in at number 7 is going to be Calvin Candy from Django Unchained. One of Quentin Tarantino's best villains. It's either him or Hans Landa from Inglourious Bastards. But you hear that Leonardo DiCaprio is going to be playing a villain, and you will get so excited, especially in a Quentin Tarantino movie. Like, that sounds awesome. And he is such a piece of shit in this movie. He's like, when you first meet him, he's kind of charming because, you know, he's Leonardo DiCaprio. You like him a lot. And then as the movie goes on, this guy is so evil and such a piece of shit. I mean, you get the iconic scene where like he slams his hand down on the table, cuts his hand open, and Leo just keeps going with the shooting of the scene. So it's just an iconic performance by Leo. And in a filmography of great performances, it is definitely a standout. And I really wish we got more villain performances by Leo because he was excellent in this movie. In at number 6 is going to be Amy Dunn from Gone Girl. Talk about a messed up character. The movie's about this woman who goes missing, and her husband, played by Ben Affleck, is pretty much thought to have murdered her. And he's questioned throughout the movie pretty much as if to whether he murdered her or not. And you don't find out until halfway through. Spoilers alert, if you haven't seen the movie, go check it out. It's awesome. That she set her husband up to make it look like he murdered her. And as soon as that twist is revealed, you were like, this woman is fucked up. And it pretty much goes throughout the rest of the film, pretty much from the halfway point onwards. You're like, this woman is psychotic. And then she does some even crazier shit at the end of the movie involving Neil Patrick Harris, who I don't like in this movie, but that's a conversation for a different time. But Rosamund Pike is so good in this movie. I can't believe she didn't win an Oscar for this. It is such a unique performance. Like, you have to sympathize with her in a way, but then she also has to flip it around, and you have to be like, this woman is fucking nuts. She is so crazy. And what a performance, like I said, by Rosamund Pike. Please check out Gone Girl if you haven't. Excellent movie. Coming in at number 5 is one of my favorite performances of the decade, and that is Terrence Fletcher in Whiplash, played incredibly by J.K. Simmons. It is no question as to why he won the Oscar in this movie. He is so fucking good. If you haven't seen Whiplash, it's about this kid, the student, that joins this jazz ensemble as a percussionist, and the instructor is J.K. Simmons, Terrence Fletcher. And this guy is psychotic and ruthless, but you're also like, his methods may get results. So you're kind of like, is this guy a bad teacher? Yes, he is. In a way, he also gets results, like I said. And he just fucking pummels, not physically, but mentally pummels Miles Teller character into the ground until this kid is like, why are you doing this, dude? But he's got such a drive and passion for being a drummer that he just wants to prove this guy to J.K. Simmons that he can do it. And their back and forth is incredible. And then towards the end of the movie, you're like, okay, like maybe J.K. Simmons does respect him enough and he's going to start being nice to him. And then at the end, that final performance where Miles Teller thinks that they're going to be playing one song, and then J.K. Simmons, Terrence Fletcher is like, all right, we're going to be playing this other song, and Miles Teller does not know the song. You're like, oh, what a fucking dick, J.K. Simmons. And if you have not seen Whiplash, it is worth it just for J.K. Simmons' performance alone, but the movie is also incredible. Please check out Whiplash. It is amazing. Coming in at number 4 is probably the best James Bond villain of all time, and that is Raul Sylvia from Skyfall. What a performance by Javier Bardem. This guy plays villains so goddamn well. And this is a character that just brings a presence to this movie. Like, any room he is in, he is so unexpected in what he's going to do, especially his introduction, where it's just that one long, like, still shot. It's not even a shot that's moving around. It's just a still shot of him walking from one end of a room to the other towards James Bond. And he's got James Bond tied up, and his monologue is incredible. It's pretty much a monologue about him and James Bond and how they're being used by MI6 and how he was pretty much betrayed by MI6. So in a way, you kind of understand him, but you care so much about James Bond and M that you're like, this guy's got to be stopped. And the way he just dismantles everything in MI6, leading up to the end where him and M both die, and it's just heartbreaking. But you're like, this guy was so entertaining, but he had to die, and he gets a pretty great death as well with the knife thrown right into his back. I love Raul Sylvia. He is one of the main reasons why Skyfall is one of the best James Bond movies of all time. Like I said, an incredible performance by Javier Bardem. Coming in at number 3 is another one of the most sympathetic movie villains of all time, and that is Koba from Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Talk about an incredible character arc. So you see Koba in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and he's being tested and experimented on by these scientists in the lab. And you notice like his face is all scarred up, and you're kind of like, oh, like what's that from? Maybe you got that out in the wild. And you learn in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, in an incredible scene where he's like touching the scars on his face, and he's like, human work, human work. And you realize that all those scars on his face are from being tested on and tortured by scientists and humans and being mistreated. And so you gain a lot of sympathy for this character. But then he hates humans so much that he's willing to destroy everything that all the apes have built, Caesar has built, and he's willing to destroy it just to get his revenge on the humans and pretty much start a war between the humans and the apes. And so much so that he betrays Caesar and tries to kill him, shoots him, blames it on the humans, which starts the war. And then pretty much throughout the rest of the movie from then on, he just gets more evil as the movie goes on. You know, he recruits Caesar's son and tries to like get him pretty much as his right hand man. It's kind of weird. I remember watching this movie at in the theaters and staying till the end credits. And if you stay until the end credits, you can hear like the sound of some rubble moving and like a ape breathing. And so you're like, oh shit, like Koba's not actually dead. And then they don't really do anything with that in War for the Planet of the Apes. He gets brought back and like kind of like Caesar like dreaming of him pretty much. But other than that, I was kind of let down by like, oh, like Koba is fucking still alive. We're gonna get him again in the third movie. We don't really. Maybe they'll bring him back in this new set of films. We'll see. But Koba, one of the best characters of this entire trilogy. Coming in at number 2 is going to be an unpopular pick, but that is Kylo Ren from the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Now I know a lot of people do not like this sequel trilogy, but I think I enjoyed The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi a lot. Not so much Rise of Skywalker. But I think one thing that a lot of people can agree on is that Kylo Ren is one of the best parts of this trilogy. Adam Driver does such an incredible job as this character. He brings so much personality and presence to this role that I think a lot of people building up to the release of Force Awakens were like, is this guy going to just be Darth Vader 2.0? And he's not that at all. He is a Darth Vader wannabe. He's Darth Vader's grandson, and he idolizes him so much, but he's also conflicted. He's torn between the light side and the dark side because he wants to be like his parents, Han Solo and Princess Leia. They're on the light side, and you can tell he has affection for them. He still loves them, but he was betrayed by Luke in what's revealed in The Last Jedi, and so he's drawn also to the dark side by Snoke. And that whole like storyline, how that gets fleshed out in The Last Jedi, where he kills Snoke and pretty much becomes the new Supreme Leader. I wish they would have continued that into The Rise of Skywalker instead of kind of redeeming him. I kind of figured they'd redeem him, so I saw that coming. But I think what they could have done with this character in the third movie could have elevated him to be just one of the best movie villains of all time. I love Adam Driver as an actor, so maybe that's why I have Kylo Ren so high. But I also really think he's a unique character and definitely one of my favorite Star Wars characters, which might be unpopular opinion. But coming in at number 1, probably everyone's number 1 is going to be Thanos from Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Talk about a character that had so much build up, and they had to nail this character. This is your big bad of the entire universe that you're building, this franchise, and they knocked it out of the park. It is so smart to pretty much make Infinity War Thanos' movie, because we've had so many movies, so much time spent with the Avengers. We know these characters. We have to know Thanos, though. We have to understand his logic, and they did a great job with it. Pretty much making him sympathetic and understandable in a way, but you also don't agree with his methods and him wiping out half the universe. But you see in Infinity War, like what happened to his planet, and you're like, oh fuck, like, yeah, that could happen to a lot of planets. And so, in a way, you understand him, but he's also the villain, so he's got to be stopped. And like I said, he's mentally smart, but he's physically imposing as well. Like, he can take on the fucking Hulk. Like, 2 minutes into the movie, he kicks the Hulk's ass, which was an incredible introduction to this character. And then pretty much all the way into Endgame with the final battle between him and Captain America, Thor, and Iron Man. I love that as well. I know a lot of people aren't fans of what they do with him in that movie, but I think it's awesome. And I definitely think he's the best MCU villain that they've had so far. And pretty much ever since this Infinity Saga, I just don't think the MCU has lived up to like the quality that they've had since these movies. But for a conclusion to what I think the MCU should probably end it on, I think Thanos was an awesome villain, and I hope they get another great big bad, but they definitely have a high bar set with Thanos and the performance by Josh Brolin as well. Such a great character, such a great performance, and my favorite movie villain of the 2010s. Well, everyone, that is the end of this video and this series of videos, bringing the conclusion of my favorite movie villains of each decade. As always, please share down below what your thoughts would be. Share your list of your favorite movie villains of the decade. I hope you guys have enjoyed this little series that I've been doing throughout the month of October. I had a lot of fun. It was also pretty difficult to come up with my list, but I think I like all of them. So like I said, please share down below what you guys would have. And also please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you have not. And until the next video, guys, see you next time.